Are you ready to transform your normal e-commerce business into one that experiences exponential growth year after year using online advertising? If so, this show is for you. Me and my guests will show you how you too can grow your e-commerce business to 7 or even 8 figures so you can go on more luxurious vacations, spoil yourself and your family, say yes to more opportunities, and become financially free so you never have to worry about money again. Welcome to the e-commerce performance marketing show. Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the e-com performance marketing show. So I've got another incredible guest for you today. I've got Brandon White. So Brandon, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell the audience a bit about yourself?
Hey, Josh, thanks for having me. Well, you asked me that before we got on here, and I had trouble doing that, but I'm a repeat entrepreneur. I go back to starting a e-commerce vertical network, social media company in the 90s. And I started, built, raised money for, bought it back from the investors, and sold the largest social media site for sport fishermen of all things on the internet. And I've done a bunch of stuff. I worked in the early division of marketing analysis at American Online, which was really the first big data division of any internet company. I worked for 2 venture capital firms, total managed like $500 million. And then I went out, I went back to the entrepreneur thing, and I never left. So I've done software company, a services company. I've had 2 exits so far, and working on my 3rd.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm actually in the middle of my first, so that's cool. Well, good for you. Well, I'm really excited, to dive into this interview. I think the audience is going to love some of the things that you're going to bring to the table, because you've got so much experience, since you've been doing this since the late 90s, and you've also been through real wealth building, which is exiting, building businesses and exiting, and that's huge. So how'd you get started? Like, if we can go back, to the late 90s when you first dove into what you're, the path that you're on right now, what ignited that?
Well, candidly, I graduated college and I didn't really know what I was going to do. And all through college, I told everybody that I was going to be a lawyer. And I didn't know that. I thought it was a good thing to shoot for. My grandfather was a lawyer, and I saw that. But the truth be told is that when you tell people you're going to go to law school and you're going to become a lawyer, no one questions you. So shut everybody up about the conversation. I could move on. Turns out that I didn't think that didn't work well. I don't test well. I'm a student who is a National Honor Society student who can't take a standardized test because I have dyslexia. So turns out that didn't work out quite the way that I wanted. I went back to a tree nursery, my mom, that I would work through to pay my way through college. And my mom said, hey, look, just get back into school. You're going to get mentally a break, and then there's all sorts of things that can happen. And I am a big fisherman. I didn't see a magazine that was targeted towards the light tackle fly fishing type of fishing that I did. So I decided that I was going to print a magazine with no experience. Turns out that I realized that all of the $800 that I had in my bank account was not going to be enough for that. And there was this thing called the internet. And I had played around with it. And really in the old BBS boards, it was when I was in college and when I came back for my master's. And I just said, hey, look, I'm just going to put a magazine online. And the truth be told is that's really how it started. And I bought a book on how to build a business plan. I read the book. We built a business plan, and I raised $1 million. Wow. And then it's sort of off to the races. So, that's a condensed version of, we did some crazy stuff, man. I traded stocks to fund the company. We bootstrapped it, and then ultimately lived through which I don't know if all your listeners will remember, but 1999, there was this thing called the .com crash, and lived through that, bought the company. It was really, I guess it was 99, 2000. It was 99, 2000, 2001. .com sort of came apart, mainly because the companies just weren't making money, and there just wasn't as many people online. And when I worked at America Online not long after that, we had 32 million subs, and that was a lot. And we were printing money at America Online back then. I mean, candidly, but now, Facebook has 1 billion people and whatnot. So now there's this scale that you can actually turn that corner and make money, whether that's in media, e-commerce, or whatever that is. So I sort of lived through the whole thing.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's cool. I'm really curious about everything that you've been through the last 20 plus years now, but I know we only have so much time. So, so I'm sure I won't be able to ask all those questions, but why don't we talk about like what you're doing now? Like what are you passionate about now?
In Beverly Hills, IT Orion Vandy.
Well, what I'm passionate about is that the business never stops. Sorry about that. Let me turn this off.
Yeah, no problem.
So really, what I'm passionate about now, after all the years of doing that, I took a break and built an enterprise software company that had a services component, and really took me out of not out of the online world. I never left it. I had some sites. I've always done affiliate marketing and all that sort of stuff. And I came back from that world and said, hey, look, I just miss online. Like, I love marketing online. I love, my favorite tool is an email list. And I love online media, mainly because if you have an audience, you can do a lot of things with an audience. And we did that at Worldwide Angler, and later when I bought it back called Titlefish. And what it's sort of evolved today, but our model revenue-wise back then, and this wasn't something, it just made sense, Josh. I didn't say like, this is some revolutionary new business model. I was like, we got all these anglers. They all buy tackle. I want to create an e-commerce business. We also have this audience that's talking to one another, and I want to sell advertising sponsorships. Oh, and by the way, there's a really hardcore group of this 100,000 people that we have who would pay a membership fee that would create a recurring revenue thing for us. So it wasn't this magical thing that we said, oh, this is going to be the business model. It was, that just made sense. Why would we not make money from all these different places? So I really learned from that experience, and now I love that model, and I think you can still do that model. And I currently have a podcast like you, but maybe as importantly, I actually have a paid newsletter. And, there's a lot of buzz going around with people discovering that magically you can make money by selling media if you produce good content that people want. And I do have a paid newsletter. It's Build a Business Success Secrets. And it's really taking all those 20 years of having been an entrepreneur, having been a venture capitalist, having done some angel investing, having bootstrapped a bunch of companies, doing a whole bunch of projects that never even made it to the quote unquote business, right? They just didn't mature, and helping other people. I do have a software company that I'm building in the productivity space. Mainly it helps you find files that you have but can't find, which has been a persistent problem for all of humankind in the digital age for like 25 years. But I would say this, Josh, in my fishing career, when you first go fishing and you become an angler, you just want to catch a fish, right? And then you're like, well, I caught the fish. I want to catch a lot of fish. And then you catch a lot of fish, and then you move on and you're like, all I want to do is catch big fish. Yeah. And then you go hunt big fish all over the world. And then finally you're like, hey, Josh, I just want to take you fishing and let you catch the fish. Yeah. And I want to take your picture. And that's sort of, I'm not retired. I'm not done, but I do get satisfaction in helping other people. And candidly, Josh, a lot of people help me in my career that did not have to help me. Yeah, so if there's some sense, there's some sense of gratefulness that I pay it back. And look, make no mistake, like if I help somebody and they're successful, like I do get something out of it. I get to brag about it, right? And that has currency with me. So it's sort of like you catching a big fish and me getting the picture. Same thing.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I love the metaphor, and also I love how you bring up that you had a lot of people helping you in your journey that weren't making any money, we're just doing it just to help you, and it makes me realize how grateful I am as well, because I've had a lot of different people over the years as well support me in my journey. And so it's just great that you just remind me of that, just because, that's something I think we need to constantly remind ourselves of, is the things that we have that have really helped us be successful. No matter what level you're at in your entrepreneur journey, there's always something to look at that can give you that gratitude. And so I just wanted to touch on that really quick. I know it's kind of like a woo-woo thing I just did, but I think that people watching or listening to this, sometimes they need to be reminded that they have things to be grateful for, because the journey that we're on as entrepreneurs, it's never smooth. It's always rocky. There's going to be some challenges and there's going to be some stress. But you got to remind yourself of like the good things along the way. So thank you for bringing that up. So it's really cool that, you've been through so much, in your entrepreneur journey. And right now it sounds like you're really passionate about your e-com brand, and also your, coaching business, obviously, with that metaphor. Let's talk about your e-com brand for a bit, so tell us about that.
Well, back in the day, I built that first business, believe it or not, on organic SEO. And if you believe Neil Patel's Uber Suggest, which I don't know if he brought the feature back or yet not, but he had a feature in there that would tell you how much organic traffic is worth. And at, I think with the last time I checked that thing, even today, that site that I sold still exists. And they've made it worse. And it had about $550,000 a month worth of SEO traffic. And I'm really good at SEO. I mean, it started in day one, and that's how I drove all of our traffic and word of mouth. I probably spent, to be truthful, maybe $50 a month. I mean, that's just mouse nuts at that point. So, what I came back into in the world now is it's pretty much a necessity that you're going to need to do paid advertising. And if you're not doing paid advertising, then you better be really, really good at SEO. And I mean, like at the top of the heap with people who know, that you're going to do that. And a lot of those conversions that come in through SEO now are very different. They came in 10 years ago, that even came in 20 years ago. So how are you going to put them into I hate the word, this whole funnel thing. Like, we've been doing sales funnels for, I think, 100 years. But there's this, how are you going to get them into your process? And then how are you going to convert them into a customer? And what the game that I've liked the last 12 months is actually optimizing Facebook and Instagram ads and some Google ads, and getting our customer acquisition costs down. And what that's really the challenge that I found exciting is, and I think people, whether you're an entrepreneur or a marketer doing e-commerce, what the magic there is that there's so many things that you got to get lined up, right? Like you have to figure out the crazy interface of Facebook. And then you got to figure out how to program that, quote unquote, program your campaigns. But then you've got to write the copy. You've got to get the right image and understand what that means. You then got to line up your, I'm going to hesitate. I'm going to say landing page, but it's really your website. But people don't have that set up right? They don't have that flow. And then you got to push a person into conversion. And then you got to figure out what I call marketing math, which most marketers do not do, or they really don't. I don't see the marketers when I'm like, hey, show me the spreadsheet. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, show me your spreadsheet so that I understand what your customer acquisition costs, your ARPU is, and your customer lifetime value, because, and on a contribution margin and on a G&A margin basis. And if you don't understand that, then you're just throwing money into the wind. And what happens is you throw the money into the wind, you get discouraged, and then you believe your e-commerce business isn't worth crap. Right. Or you get these things and I want to insult any listeners or anything, but when I hear, oh, well, we did $1 million in sales in your funnel. Well, how much net profit did you make? And that was a long answer to like, what do I get excited about? I get excited about like beating that whole process and making a bunch of money because I can get that thing lined up. So it's a real challenge. And I think it's pretty exciting. And once you get it right, you're printing money if you do it, but it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't.
Right. It takes a lot of work. Absolutely. I mean, what would you say has been your biggest like e-com related success to date that you've been involved with?
I would say the biggest e-commerce was when I ran the social network and we had an e-commerce business that we built on top of the community. Okay. And I would say, who is the guys out of New York who have, they bought Threadless and they own a guy's site. Name escapes me right now, Josh, but they merged that guy is really innovative. He's a smart guy. Jason Lear, I think. But that thing was successful because it wasn't a pure sale per se. Meaning if I was just selling fishing tackle, that's a different approach than having a community and leveraging that community and selling a fishing reel. To that community of which I posted a report with that fishing reel, that fishing rod and fishing line. And it feels like more of an education. But that was a big, if I look back and you're like, hey, what's your biggest win so far? It was that. And the other reason I'll tell you is back then, I'm not that old. I started pretty early, but there wasn't this thing called drop shipping. I actually, in the fishing world, had to go to these distributors and convince them that they should drop ship for us. And we were doing it via fax. That's how it worked. There wasn't this like automated, and you used to have real processors, like not Stripe and all this stuff that you can pay, even now, once you get above probably a few $10,000 a month, you're going to have issues with your credit card processor. But, I think that was the biggest success, mainly just because,
that's great.
We did some cool things with that.
Yeah. How big was your community?
Well, we had about 180,000 people a month visit. Okay. Our email list when I had it was about 75,000. I'll caveat that because there's a lot of solopreneurs now, not everybody, but that have some really good sized email lists, 100, 2, 3, 4, 5. The thing that was unique about our community is that I did not allow any free email addresses. So I verified there was no free registration. If you had a Gmail address, you had to email me and I would verify that you were a real human. So those were all real people that had come to the site. And I consciously made that decision. It was a lot of work, but my open rates are high. I've got real people. I don't have spammers, et cetera.
Yeah. I'm sure that added a lot of value to the business as you built the value in it before you sold it, because you had a very engaged list. Sounds like, you took some extra steps there, which maybe created a little friction in the conversion process, but you gained a lot of high quality subscribers that were really receptive to everything you were doing, which is incredible in the value that represents.
Yeah. And it worked. And I also focused on the brand, and people missed that point. But back when, I sold that site over 8 years ago, but at that time and previous into 2000, in general, it never really fluctuated. Our average time on site was 11 and a half minutes plus. And, that's just a lot of time per session for somebody to be engaged with your site. And when you do that, you're going to be able to get your message across, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. And then I know that was the community side. What about the e-com side? Like, what'd you grow the e-com side to?
Well, I can't tell you the numbers because the NDA that I have doesn't allow me to do it, but it was significant. We were not Bass Pro Shops, but we were doing a significant amount of money that mattered. And when I converted it into the e-commerce, I was making a really good few $100,000 a year working, well, quite candidly, fishing. And the e-commerce, I also converted it. What I learned with that e-commerce business is we started selling our own brand, doing private label T-shirts and things like that. And then the margins just went even higher. Selling a Shimano fishing reel, there's not a lot of money in that, especially when you drop ship it and you have to do free shipping if you want your conversion rates to go up. But if you sell a T-shirt that you printed for $4.53 and you sell it for $29.95, you start to make a bunch of money.
Yeah. What do you think were some of the strategies or tactics that you implemented into the community or into the e-com brand that was able to get, that overall business up to the level that you got it up to?
I think you got it, and I'm still going to raise my hand and say I suck at it because it just feels uncomfortable. But you got to sell. If you want your e-commerce, if you want to sell your products in e-commerce, you've got to get your conversion rate. You need to get your advertising dialed in, and you've got to sell. You've got to promote that and get it in front of that customer.
Right, like almost daily, just about.
You do.
Right?
And I like Josh. I suck. I sell a newsletter right now, and I suck because I don't want to be as pushy, and it's hurting our sales. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But I would say that if you're not a little uncomfortable, well, let me put it this way. If you're not getting emails, a few, using either 4-letter words or whining that you sell too much, then you're probably not selling enough. I mean, that's the threshold. And I don't get any of those. So I
So glad you brought up that point, because I've coached others too on how, you have to have that frequency of pitching. You have to have, you can't be afraid to pitch. You got to do it consistently, almost daily, if you have a big enough audience even. So this way you can really drive sales.
Well, I think the fear from a guy who's cleaning his email list right now is that you will pee off somebody and then they will unsubscribe. And what you really have to have the mindset of is, if they unsubscribe, they weren't going to buy from you anyway. So kick them off and stop paying for your email.
No. You're like holding on too tightly to that subscriber instead of thinking in abundance and also polarizing people and attracting the right people by making those pitches on a consistent basis. Because you want people to say yes or say no. You don't want people to stay on that maybe fence and then not buy anything. You want to move people to a buy or move them off, because the sooner you get them to become a customer, the more money and revenue and profit you can make in your business, because the more customers you have, the more you can sell to your customers.
Yeah,
and that's going to give you the biggest ROI in your e-commerce.
But you can't. And look, I've been doing this for a really long time, and I did make, a bunch of money doing it, and I still suck. And I probably left a lot of money on the table, candidly.
Even though you've done well, yeah. Even though you've done well.
But it's hard, that I get tired of hearing all these pitches online, it's everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. I've been doing this since I was in my early 20s, and this is not meant for I actually feel like it's insulting to my career to be that's like telling a Navy SEAL that anybody can be a Navy SEAL. Not everybody can be a Navy SEAL, and not everybody can be an entrepreneur. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. When it came to, you really selling consistently and effectively, what were some of the things you did, in your e-com business that we're talking about here to be able to drive sales on a consistent basis, even with your feelings that you're sharing with the audience today in regards to having that anxiety and that apprehension when it comes to selling?
So the thing that I did that actually made it pretty easy is we customized. So we built back in the early internet 1.0, there probably 0.5 was a thing called My Assignment, and it was a recommendation engine, much like I don't know how many people use CNET today, but CNET is really a recommendation engine. And we built a recommendation engine for fishing tackle. So what we built was, and we hand jammed it, we built a database of every rod, every reel, every lure, every motor, every boat, and every electronic. And what we did is we understood that we could customize the experience by zip code by a person, and then present that product at the right time. And that was the difference between having an e-commerce section on our website and selling, candidly, because, you know, it was there. It was there. And you've got to segment your audience, who you're selling to. You know, people say, oh, I'm selling e-commerce. Well, who's your audience? You know, our audience was usually where we made our money is an entry to mid-level angler, because they're going to buy everything. All I got to do is put a big picture of a fish up there with this lure, and you could watch the sales go. You know, the experienced fisherman's going to say, yeah, well, like, they're going to be like me. They're going to be like, yeah, but I use the butterbean chartreuse jig with silver flash and it catches fish everywhere. I don't care about that lure, right? But if you can customize things to your people's experience, even if you're selling clothing, if all you do is customize to a size, it makes it easier. I think the one thing, you know, I have an MBA, but I also have a master's in psych, and probably worth more money and in the ROI from the standpoint of, if you want to sell in e-commerce, if you want to sell anything, you have to make it easy. And you have to remove decisions for a human so that they can get there. If you're going to make them down select, shirt, short sleeve, cotton, red, medium, how many decisions does that have to, like, right. Just give me the medium. And we, in my registration process, and you just sparked this, in our registration process, I actually asked what size clothes they wore. Mm-hmm. And that was because we could be like, hey, here's your medium shirt. Yep. And that made a difference.
That was great. That's actually a really good tip. That's a good conversion tip. I think that there's a lot of e-com brands listening to this that should probably test that in their store if it's applicable. This way they can simplify the process of checking out, and you know, they don't have to choose a bunch of options per product. They could just, like you said, you could ask it up front before they even go down that line.
Or record it. Another mistake that e-commerce people specifically make is they don't build their CRM correctly, meaning they don't collect enough data points on people.
Totally. Yep. And I was just talking about that last week with my coaching business and my coaching clients, how important it is to do surveys on a consistent basis, really learn a lot about your audience, and then use your marketing automation system, your CRM, to segment people based on those responses.
And that's not easy. I mean, even today, I mean, I'm a guy who builds software, and I still haven't seen, you know, we're still duct taping things together using Zapier and 6 other things. And that's what we managed to do with our newsletter. But, you know, we're collecting probably, I mean, I want 100 data points on people. We don't have it all filled in, but ultimately that's what we're shooting for, so that you can customize. And, you know, there'll be all these people out there going to be like, oh, Brandon, it's my privacy and this and that. Like, if you want something for free, you're going to give something up. And if that's going to a website and surfing it or experiencing it. But I think the other goal, Josh, for e-commerce people is to make your consumer want to give you that information, because they know that when you do give the information, you add value to their life.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great, Brandon. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know that we're getting close to the end here. So we're going to go into the last part of the interview today. And this is our kind of bonus round to kind of wrap things up on a fun note. So I'm basically going to ask you 4 questions. And each of these questions, you have to respond with only one word.
Okay.
All right. So what caused your biggest e-com success to date?
SEO.
Nice. Okay. I don't think anybody's ever said that, so that's cool. What advice do you have for other e-com business owners? I wish I had the Jeopardy music playing right now.
Well, you only said one word, so it's like, this is a phrase.
I know. It's tough.
ARPU.
ARPU. Okay. All right. Good. People are going to Google. They need to Google that. You know, they need to know what that is.
Well, you want me? I mean, average revenue per user. It's one word though.
Oh, okay.
Average revenue per user. You got to know your ARPU.
Yeah, for sure. How would you describe yourself?
intense.
Cool. All right. What do you see in your future?
Fun.
And what does fun consist of for you? That's not even one of the questions. I'm just asking.
Oh, owning my own time.
Owning your own time. That's great. That's great. That's awesome, man. Well, cool. This has been a really fun interview. And thank you so much for being on. I really loved the time we had and the questions that we went through, and hearing your responses to those questions. And you've got some incredible experience, and you've done quite a bit as an entrepreneur. How can people reach out to you? How can they learn more from you? How can they find out more about what you're doing? It sounds like you have an incredible newsletter that they should subscribe to. This way they can learn from your experience and your wisdom, and get results faster, in their business. So, or, even if they're trying to sell businesses, how can someone do that?
Well, thank you for that e-commerce plug, Josh. The best way, you can check out my website at brandonchwhite.com. Tune into my podcast at Build a Business Success Secrets. We're everywhere on the internet. And then, and if anybody, I'm always open to, my contact information is on that website. You can feel free to email me or call me or whatever it is. I'm always excited to help people who are ambitious and want to make some money. Truthfully.
Love it, man. You said it was Brandon T or C?
Brandon C as in Charlie. BrandonCWhite.com.
Okay, got it. Okay. All right, guys. Well, you heard it. BrandonCWhite.com. This will be below the video if you're seeing this on YouTube or on a blog, etc. Or you can always just, if you're listening to this, just go ahead and go to BrandonCWhite.com. Not when you're driving, but after you're done. This way you can definitely check out Brandon and follow him, and also find out more about his newsletter that he's providing. That sounds like it's an incredible content subscription that can really help you grow your business much faster. So definitely check that out. Brandon, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for tuning into the e-commerce performance marketing show. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment with a timestamp of your favorite part and share it with a friend. Until our next episode, here's to you and the success of your e-commerce business.